magazine did a survey a few years ago, and they talked about what most people were concerned about, money or sex. And surprisingly, it was about a 50-50 split. Half the people worried more or were more concerned about sex than they were money. But when they asked the people who responded that sex was more important in their relationship than money, they found out that most of the people responded that they felt that money was too personal. They'd rather talk about sex because money was too personal. Not sure, okay? But it does give us some insight on perception of what we don't want to talk about. And money is one of those things. So today, I want to talk a little bit about the way you might feel about money and what you can do to change that attitude towards maybe being a little bit more comfortable about money, all right? So, some basic facts, all right? First of all, debt is debt. I don't care if it's credit cards or if it's loans or whatever it is. In Proverbs it says, rich is the man who owes no one. If you could get out of debt, you're not saddled by it. You're not a slave to that debt. Okay, but it amazes me when I see the get out of debt loans. Maybe you've seen those advertised. Get out of debt. See us for a get out of debt loan. I'm sorry, it's still debt. Okay, any way you look at it, it's still debt. And interest is interest. Whether you're paying it, which is the rent that you're paying on the money that you borrowed or your debt, or whether you're receiving it. Now, personally, I'd much rather receive the interest than have to pay the interest. But interest is interest. And last but not least, it's a lot easier getting into debt than it's getting out of debt. We'll see some of the reasons that that happens. One of the key things that we need to focus on, I did budget counseling for 23 years. And one of the things that I always focused on was cash flow. I never really concerned about how much debt you had as long as you could cash flow it and pay your expenses. That might be paycheck to paycheck or month to month. It might be those quarterly bills for insurance or whatever. And then preparing for unexpected expenses that might come up. So, whoops, I gotta get back here. So, how did you learn about money? Who taught you about money? What did your parents teach you about money? This is where I have to ask everybody to kind of jump in, all right? What did your parents teach you about money? I can wait as long as any of you can.
I was taught to save first,
Save first?
and I was taught it doesn't matter how much you make, depends on what you do with what you make.
Okay. Anyone else?
Gotta work for it.
Gotta work for it? What else do your parents teach you?
If you want something, earn it.
You want something, earn it? Okay, this is an exceptional group. Now imagine what somebody else's parents might have taught them. All right,
Choose wisely what you spend your money on.
choose wisely what you spend your money on. You have to make some choices. Most groups, they'll tell me that their parents taught them how to spend money. Well, we gotta make choices, so you gotta decide where you're gonna spend your money. What has society taught us about money?
It's unlimited.
Unlimited.
You can always get
You
more.
can have whatever you want. Okay, takes us down to where the creditors and the lenders are pretty sure that you can have whatever you want, whenever you want it, as soon as you want it, as often as you want it, right?
Yeah, they're like, just come get it and we'll pay us later.
Yeah. Enjoy it now, we'll worry about paying it later. How about your peers? Anyone have any peer pressure? we used to say we needed to keep up with the Joneses, but the Smiths moved in next to the Joneses, and they got more stuff. Now we gotta keep up with the Smiths, all right? How about marketing campaigns? Let's see, I think we need to change wireless carriers, because we can save some money, okay? So that we can take that money and buy a bigger wireless plan. Okay, or, McDonald's, what's their slogan right now? I don't know.
Don't you remember?
You love it. You love it. Okay. We've gone from you deserve it, which was their old marketing campaign, to you love it. Okay? We're now pulling more emotion in than they ever did before. And how about spouses and children? Do they have any impact on our decisions on money and what what our choices are? My kids. I had a 12-year-old son. I have 4 boys, okay, and they've taught me an awful lot about money over the years. My son was 12 years old. The youngest one was 12 years old. We went to Menards, and I saw a cordless drill I needed to have. So I picked it up and I put it in a basket, and we get to the checkout, and my wife picks up this drill and looks at it and says, "What do you need this for?" Men, you're all men. What do you need a cordless drill for? A hole, right? And that was my response. I need a hole. That's what I would do with it. I'd drill a hole. To which her response was, "When was the last time you needed a hole?" She had me over the barrel. I didn't know how to respond to that, so I did the manly thing. I took it off the belt and gave it to the clerk and said, "We don't want this." Then I did the next most manly thing, is I went out in a car, I bypassed her, and started to pout about not getting the drill. And she came into the car, my son came into the car, and we went home, we got in the garage, and I got out of the car, went back to the family room, and continued my discourse, okay? I could afford this. I don't know what her big problem was. And my 12-year-old son comes in, and he sits down next to me, and he says, "Dad, you can still get the drill." I said, "Andy, forget it." He goes, "No, you can get it, but this is what you gotta do. You gotta go in the other room. You gotta put your arms around Mom. Now, she's gonna push you off, okay? You put your arm around Mom, she's gonna push you off, and you say, 'I'm sorry, honey, I acted like a foolish little boy.' And she's gonna look at you, and she's gonna say, 'Oh, why don't you go get the drill?'" Now, I'm ready to prove this 12-year-old wrong. Because I've been married to this woman for 22 years and I know her. I'm proving them wrong. I walked in the other room, I put my arm around her, she pushes me away. I said, "Dear, I'm sorry, I acted like a kid, you're right, I didn't need the drill." She looks at me and she says, "Oh, why don't you go get the drill?" Now, at this point in my life, it's not about the drill anymore. It's about this kid knowing how to manipulate not only me, but my wife. Most important, me. I walk back in the other room, and he's laying on the couch, and all he does is this. You see, we're influenced very easily and observed by our children as well on how we spend it. There have been times I've gone through the checkout lines, and I would observe the people ahead of me, and I would see kids taking a pack of gum and putting it up on the belt. and the parents having 3 packs of cigarettes there and saying, I'm sorry, we can't afford that, taking a gun and putting it away. But likewise, I've also seen the kids come up with $100 pair of shoes, and the parents go, okay, I guess you need that, all right? Or they buy them off, you know, we've taught our kids an awful lot on how to manipulate us and others. Money means different things to different people. Might be love or freedom or self-worth or happiness or security, or it might be a combination of any of those. Okay, and as we look at that and we put our mindset in, and we realize that many times money might relate to more than one of those in our relationships with our spouses, our friends, our parents. We have what's known in this society a disease called affluenza. I call it affluenza, somebody else coined the phrase. It's basically the disease of having everything that you've got and wanted in life, and you feel you're still entitled to more. When we talk about entitlement programs today, the first thing people talk about is Social Security, disability, and all those payments. I maintain that we have an entitlement program where we all feel that we're entitled to something just because we work. Just because our parents had something, we feel we should be entitled to it. So what causes distress in a relationship? Well, this comes back from a study that says basically 75% of people are stressed out because of money. For some reason, they're stressed out because of money. Work at 70%, and if we take a look at marital relationships, someplace around 50%. Okay. However, it was pointed out to me that as we take a look at this, you look all the way down, how many of those items are tied to money issues? Whether it's a relationship, whether it's health, whether it's personal security or housing costs, most of those things are tied to money. So money takes a stress factor on us. Bottom line, we still like to consume. Consumption is still the drug of choice. You know, if we get stressed out, what do? A lot of people look at going shopping. We gotta get away. We call it the Target Tango or the Walmart Waltz or whatever it is. It's a way of releasing ourselves so that we can go shopping and feel that maybe if we spent some money, we'd feel better. So, time to participate again. I'd like you to take a look at this situation and tell me what's going through that little fish's mind. This is still participation, so.
Don't hit the
you don't have to
button.
be bashful.
And right now, the fish thinks everything is good, it's like he's in an aquarium. But wait until that switch gets turned on, then he'll find out it's a whole different ballgame.
Okay, so that on switch kind of might be bothering him. He might think this is an aquarium. What else?
How much longer is that off switch gonna still be there?
How long is that switch gonna be there?
That's good.
Okay, what else? Well, if I was aware of what this was, I'd sure hope somebody pull that plug, right? Well, here's the fact. This isn't the aquarium. This isn't the normal life situation that fish is accustomed to, okay? Somebody had to put him in this situation. And a lot of times in our lives, we find ourselves in the same situation, which is an unfamiliar situation. Maybe it's because we got cut in hours and we don't have the money to make the mortgage payment or the car payment, or there's an emergency comes up and we're not sure how we're gonna deal with that situation. Many times we fall into the same situation of not being comfortable because what's happening here? There's no control. The fish has no control over that situation. Where, in this situation, we do have some control, okay? Dad takes a look at the budget and the cost of living, and he says he's gone over the numbers and, well, we're gonna have to let somebody go. okay, family meeting, all right? Take a look at the looks on the people's face, because at this point, they're wondering what's gonna have to give. It's not a question of, oh, we have a situation here, how can we deal with it? Can we work on it together? Is everyone willing to give up a little something? Dad makes the assumption that somebody's gonna have to go. That's the easy solution to most of the problems that people look at, is like, okay, let's do the obvious. I like to always take a look at any problem having three solutions. Many times we only look at option A. Or, better, maybe option B. But until we really take some time and take a look for the third solution, or the third option we have, we may not have the best solution to our problem. Whether it's debt, whether it's new payments, whether it's a crisis. Myth of money. If you had more money, your problems would go away. Over my years of counseling, I can tell you that the more money doesn't make the problems go away. We have a mindset, we have a money mindset that we have to work with and adjust in order to allow us to be stress-free. So we need to find out where we are. Here's the reality, is that more money won't help without a change in attitude. Attitude is everything. You know, money won't help your spending habits. I've seen people, I love watching the lottery winners when somebody wins the lottery. I can tell you if they're gonna be successful or not, because the guy that says, I won the lottery, I got $100,000, I'm gonna quit my job and buy a Harley. Broke. By the way, 95% of the lottery winners are broke within 3 to 5 years. Meanwhile, the sweet little old lady from Kenosha, who won $500,000 in the lottery, says, well, first thing I'm gonna do is fix that front screen door and get some new storm windows, and then I'm gonna give some to church. She's gonna make it. She has the attitude of where it's gonna go. Her spending habits didn't change just because she had more money. And more money won't help if you can't pay it back. We cannot borrow ourselves rich, okay, as much as some people try. The more we have a tendency to spend, and it won't help if we can't pay it back. So let's talk about the 4 money cycles that we fall through, or fall into, okay? There's only 4 money cycles. It's where you're at and where you can understand people are at that cause some problems. So first of all, we have the earn, spend, which is basically living paycheck to paycheck. And 79% of the population in this country lives paycheck to paycheck. And it doesn't matter at what level. We had the opportunity to work with Johnsonville several years ago and did a survey of their employees. And we surveyed line people, supervisors, managers, and upper management. And when we did the survey, we coded those surveys so we had an idea of which group, because we were pretty sure that the more people earned, the less they lived paycheck to paycheck. However, when we finished our survey, Ralph Stayer asked to see the statistics and results. And the amazing part is that 78% of the people on the line live paycheck to paycheck. What was even more amazing was that 82% of top management in a company live paycheck to paycheck.
Where's the money going?
The more, it's back to spending habits. The more you have, the more you spend, or the more the tendency is to spend if you're living paycheck to paycheck. And Ralph's comment was, you know, we taught people how to do management by objectives and setting goals, but we never taught them anything about personal finance and how to budget and make ends meet. Second cycle is earn, spend, borrow, spend. Now, that's the group of people that say, you know, I'm entitled, I deserve it now. So they earn some money, they spend it, then they go borrow some money and they spend that, okay? And it's the, you know, I deserve because I work hard, I'm entitled to it. And basically, we're financing a standard of living. The next cycle is earn, spend, save, which means I save everything that's left at the end of the month. Or maybe whenever I have any money left, okay? And there's no structure to saving whatsoever, okay? I used to be, this is where I used to be, okay? And I was gonna pay off of my debt, and I'd save anything that was left, okay? What I found out was there was never anything left, because there was always something that came up. Oh, the refrigerator went, or, you know, the kids' basketball shoes needed to be replaced, or something. There was always something that came up. The last is, oops, get this backwards here. The last is earn, save, spend. That's where you put the money away, you pay yourself first, and you have a reason to save. That's the toughest one for most people, and yet the easiest way of saving. Over the years, I encourage people to get to this point where they actually save money first. Most people could save 5% out of their paycheck if they never saw it. Easily, right? If you never see it, it's easy to save. This is the one place, I don't talk politics, but this is the one place that the federal and state government got it right. If you take a look at your paycheck, what's the first thing that comes out?
Social Security,
Social Security. Second thing,
state and federal income tax.
state and federal income tax. So when it comes out, do you miss it? It's gone.
It's gone,
I have to live on what's left. So if you took 5 or 10% of your paycheck out, or if you took the raise that you got and you put it away, would you notice that it was gone? Classic example. Had a lady in my office who was having a problem putting together a simple budget, and we were talking about her cycles, and her cycle was, I save whatever's left. I said, well, why don't we save what's first? And she had just gotten a raise. So we calculated out what the raise was, and we automatically put the raise into a savings account that she opened up at the credit union. 3 years later, she came back in, and she goes, you know, I haven't seen you for 3 years, but I'm in a crisis now and I need some help. And I said, well, what's the issue? She goes, well, I need to replace the exhaust system on my car. It sounded like a pretty major financial issue. It was $250, okay? But she didn't have the money because we didn't have it put in the budget. She wasn't really following the budget anymore. And I said, well, what about your savings account? She goes, well, I don't have a savings account. I said, well, did you bring your statement in? Yeah, I got my statement. I look at her statement, and here's the savings account down at the bottom. I said, well, right now you've got about $4,000 in a savings account. No, I don't have a savings account. We actually had to call the credit union to verify that she had $4,000 in the savings account. Why? Because she never saw the deduction going into the savings account on her check. All she looked at is, this is my check, this is what I have. Never missed it. Over the years, it's very easy to say that the worst thing that can happen is people get a big tax refund. okay, because nobody saves their tax refund. They either pay bills with it, go on vacation, or spend it. And I've seen people that get $6,000 and $7,000 back in their tax refund. And the reason is they never change their deductions at work. And the one couple, I said, so tell me, what do you do when you get your tax refund? And they go, well, we pay all our bills and get current. I go, well, that's pretty cool. We had just done their budget, and they were $300 short. They got a $7,000 tax refund. Okay. I said, so how does it feel? Feels really good not owing anybody any money. I said, how'd you like to have that feeling every month? Well, I don't think we could do that. I said, all you have to do is change your deductions. We put $500 a month more back into your budget. You pay all your bills on time, and you feel this good every month. I never thought of that. See, a lot of times, it's just a simple change that we have to make in order to make those things happen. So, marital relationships, okay. Money relationship, in a relationship, in a marital relationship. You probably heard for better or worse, those are one of the vows that we take. For better or worse, I can guarantee you it'll get worse. For rich or poor, you're probably gonna get poorer, and until death do you part, okay? Number one cause of divorce in the country is money issues. When my wife and I got married, she firmly believed that I couldn't do any better and she couldn't do any worse. So we had a good rocky start going when it started coming to money. And part of that was because of our expectations when we get into a relationship. This is one of the things that I think gets overlooked when anybody starts talking about money. And again, I've seen instances where people have not been able to identify why they have financial problems in their relationship, and this is part of it. It's the role that's anticipated when we get married. And we do this by observation and taking a look at our parental roles. So if in fact we both the husband and the wife, saw the father handle the money, who do you think is expected to handle money in this relationship? Fairly simple answer, right? Everybody's gonna expect that the male is gonna be responsible for money. And in a Christian environment, this gets really touchy because it's assumed that the man is the head of the household and we don't know how to handle money. Now, it's important to point out that just because everybody expects that role to be the male, doesn't mean that the male is equipped to do a really good job. And it vice versa. If observation is that the mother handled it, then we're gonna expect that the woman in the relationship handled it. However, we get into this situation and you can see some potential conflict. First of all, she sees mother handle the money and he sees father handle the money, and now they get married. Who do you think is gonna handle the money? I'm testing you now. Who do you think will handle the money in this relationship?
Fight over it.
Yep.
Pardon? They'll fight over it?
Fight over control.
Yep.
They'll fight over control. Or the strongest personality wins. And that strongest personality may say, I'm gonna handle the money in the conversation. Which probably won't lead to a very good marital relationship because we're not communicating about money. This was the situation with myself and my wife when we got married. Final negotiation before we tied the knot was she could write the checks and I would audit it, okay? Any expenditure over $100, we had to talk about. When we put our savings, when we set up our savings, The agreement was that there were 2 signatures required on the savings account on our emergency fund, because we would have to talk about any emergency that would came up that we declared an emergency. Now, I could declare an emergency at 200, and she didn't think it was an emergency. We had talked about it, how we were gonna cover that, okay? But you can see the conflict that could arise in this type of situation. The other next situation is one where she observed dad handling the money, and he observed mother handling the money, and again, conflict, absolutely. And again, who wins? In this case, the strongest personality always wins. In the one case that comes to mind, he had the stronger personality, he also had the bigger paycheck. And therefore, he felt he had more power. As sometimes that does come into play. I earn more, therefore I am the breadwinner, therefore you will handle it, and you give me what I need. And this was the case. And then all of a sudden, she didn't feel she could deny him anything. And she started using the credit cards to take care of their standard of living that he expected. And all of a sudden, the debt got out of hand. And he brought her in for a counseling session to straighten her out. And after we got to this point and I realized that this was the problem, I simply stated, I think it's time you handle the money, because we had done a budget, that you handle the money. He said, well, I can't handle the money, that's her responsibility. Why can't you handle the money? He says, well, I'm taking a look at the budget, there's not enough money there. I said, okay, now we're starting to talk where we have to take a look at the spending and how we're gonna control it. So there are several different types of compulsive behaviors out there. Everything from eating to gambling to sex to cleaning to internet. About 10% of the population have a compulsive behavior, and it's one of those things that we have to learn how to control ourselves, because we may be in 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 of those categories even. So, key question is, do you control the money, or does the money control you? What do I mean by that? Well, if I'm looking at my paycheck and there's never enough money, or if I'm looking at my relationship and we aren't communicating, and the biggest problem is spending, saving. We may have a spender and a saver in the same household, we got conflict. We need to talk about what we have to do in order to take control of that financial situation. Because otherwise, we will become a slave to debt. And once we become that slave, it takes over our relationships with our spouses. So what role does money play in your life? What role does money play in your relationship with God? I don't talk about tithing and I don't talk about stewardship. And I'll give you a couple of examples that I think we need to be aware of. The parable of the person with, they've got 1 talent, 2 talents, and 5 talents. What was the criteria to getting those talents? Does anybody remember?
Using them.
Pardon?
Using them.
Using them? There's one key that went before that, okay? Because we do a lot of times focus on the return, right? And that's pretty human nature. It's like, hey, you know, the guy with 5 got another 5. The guy with 2 got another 2. The The guy with one went and buried it. They were each given to their ability to handle, which was great insight from the person that was giving the talents out. And I will tell you that I was a one-talent person. And as a one-talent person, my focus was simply on everybody else having more than I had. And that was pretty selfish. And it's like, okay, so I got the talent, and let's just take that talent and let's forget about the money, and let's take a look about, yeah, I can sing in a choir, I can play the guitar, I can do something else, okay. So I have a talent that maybe I'm a good Sunday school teacher, I could be a Sunday school teacher, and then that would be enough. So we take the talent and we're satisfied with what we have. It's not a question of just burying it, it's a question of only utilizing what we've been given. And then pretty soon I realized that, you know, there was more to this relationship, and maybe I could do more. And then I was given more talents. And I got a different job, and I was given more money. And now when you get more money, the temptation is there is to forget about what I needed to do when I was surviving on less. And I found out that in order to move from 1 to 2, you have to give up selfish. And when you move to 2, you start thinking about others. And then maybe by the time you get worthy of handling 5 talents, you have a bigger responsibility than you had ever thought you could have before. That now, I want to do more. I have more, I want to give more. And as a 5-talent person, when you get to 5-talent person, you find out that money falls way down on the bottom of the list, because God is providing you with more things and wants you to do more with what you have. If you had more money, what would you do with it? If I really invested 5 and I got 10, would I be satisfied with that return? Now, it assumes, that parable assumes that 100% return for the person that had 2 talents was a good return. But is that really what it's telling us? Or is it telling us that the person now that had 2 talents has 4 talents and has the ability to move to 5 and hit the expectations that are even higher? Or do we limit ourselves with what we have been given and not what we've been blessed with? So I'd like you to consider adding this to your life. Whether it's money, whether it's a change in relationship, whether it's that relationship with a friend, a neighbor, a spouse, there's basically 3 things that we have to deal with. As you leave, I would like you to take a look at your attitude. Your attitude towards life, your attitude towards giving, your attitude towards money. And realize that you need direction. And we talked about that today, being uncommon, right? We're uncommon. The common thing is la-di-da, laissez-faire, let it happen. If we're going to have change, we have to create change. In order to create change, we have to change our attitude. If we don't change our attitude, nothing's going to change. Once that attitude is changed, then we need the direction. Where do we want to go? Do we want to save more? Do we want to give more to missions? What do we want to do in our lives, both financially and spiritually? And then once we have that direction, the toughest part is the discipline. Whether it's making sure that we want to read the Bible on a more religious basis, whether we want to have better communication with our spouse regarding finances, and then doing it. We have 4 different times through the year that my wife and I sit down and really dig in to finances. Take a look at our net worth on December 31st. Quarterly, we do a checkup on our retirement plans and investments and financial needs and giving, and where can we help out. Disciplining ourselves to realize that I still use coupons when I go grocery shopping. And I take the savings from the grocery shopping and I put it in the mission fund that we're gonna give. We don't have to use coupons anymore, but it's the discipline that says you are in control of your money, and your money is not controlling you. There's 4 reasons to budget. Nobody likes to use the word budget, so I like to call it a spending plan, okay? First of all, it allows you to take control of your budget, and for most people, or take control of your finances. And for most people don't have a budget because they make enough money. Or they feel they make enough money. I did a group for a credit union. There were 20 people, and I said, how many people have a budget? One person raised their hand. I said, I got news for you. All of you have a budget. But there's only one of you that knows where the money is going. Otherwise, we fall into one of those other categories. I'll save what's left, or I can live paycheck to paycheck, right? Second, it helps control debt. If you don't have a budget or a spending plan, you have no idea where your money's going, and debt will get out of control in a hurry. And it's a question of, how do I control it? How do I get out of that debt? It improves the relationship, trust me. People I've worked with over the years, if you take a look at that spending plan, and you say, this is where the money goes, this is what it's for, this is what it's dedicated to, it makes your relationship much better, both with money and with a spouse. And it also allows you to save more money, because you just put it in. This is what we're gonna save for. You need to have a reason to save in order to save. So, observation. I didn't know that I grew up poor until I went to college. And then I found out that my family could have got food share and all kinds of other benefits, okay? And I went home and I said to my dad, I said, Dad, you know, we could have got food share and, you know, our food stamps at the time. We could have got food stamps at the time, and we could have probably even got some rent assistance. And his response was simply this: rich and poor, first he said, so do you feel you were denied anything? I said, no. He said, rich and poor are states of mind. Wealth and poverty are economic conditions. And I think about it, and I realize, I've been on several mission trips that as I see people who make $300 a year in Haiti, they are happy and they feel rich. They don't feel poor. There's 2 ways of getting everything you want out of life. Number 1 is keep accumulating. And you will keep accumulating. And there will come a point in your life when you will have accumulated so much that you won't use most of it. There are more storage sheds in Sheboygan County than there are independent garages, okay? Because people have accumulated so much stuff, they gotta have a place to put it. They may not even know what's there anymore, but they know that they've accumulated. The second way of doing that, of getting everything you want out of life, is to desire less. And I personally have found, that, you know, when I desired less, I was a lot happier. I didn't need as much as I thought I needed. And I realized that God's taken pretty good care of me at this point in my life. And I started appreciating all those blessings that were given to me. And realizing that I didn't have to worry about food. I never gone hungry. Not really. My stomach may have grown once or twice in my life, but that was about it, okay? And I've never had to go out on the street with a leaf wrapped around my waist, okay? He's taking care of all those needs. Sometimes it was tough, but my basic needs were always taken care of. So I leave you with this thought. What is it? Does anyone know what that's saying to you? Now simply, here the buck stops here. It's up to you on what your relationship with money is gonna be. It's up to you on whether you're gonna let that money control you and your life, or if you're gonna be able to use it as just a tool to get through life. So, any questions or comments? If not, I'm the only thing between you and lunch, so I know my place. All right. Thank you for coming.